Indurain trying to make his attempt here now to open up the gap. He's got to close this gap down. It's man on man now. Indurain isn't worried about his finish position today. He's more worried about the actual time gains of Claudio Chiappucci, who could be heading for the maillot jaune right now because Pascal Lino is in terrible trouble and losing a lot of time today. The yellow jersey could be the return now after this marvellous ride by Claudio Chiappucci. It will go down as one of the finest escapes I've ever seen in any of 20 Tours de France, and the Italians know it too. They're trying to coax, pull and drag their man home in Italy. The Tour de France very rarely makes an incursion into Italy, and surely now they're not going to allow Claudio Chiappucci to lose not just the stage win, but the manner in which he has won this race. He's not been afraid of anybody in this year's Tour. He's attacked the minute this stage has started, and I can't believe when he attacked at the beginning of today's stage of 254 kilometres, he really expected to be in this position now coming up to the finish. Look at this crowd. And even the motorbikes are in the way now, and this is really unfortunate because you lose your rhythm. And actually, Chiappucci just asking the crowd to pull back. Let him see the road to the finish, please, at Sestriere. It's not just for the stage win. Every push of those pedals is gaining time, he hopes, but Indurain now is trying desperately to bridge the gap. Franco Vona, by the way, is lodged in between these two. Our camera's staying rightly on the one-on-one battle. And Indurain, knowing that it could be the yellow jersey that awaits him at the finish tonight, if he can control the attack now by Chiappucci. He was the man with the most to gain at the start. He started in second place overall. He will know, as well as everybody else now, that the yellow jersey of Pascal Lino has cracked on this mountain stage to Sestriere. Chiappucci trying desperately to pull time away from Indurain. 1 kilometre to go. Indurain is closing the gap slowly, but ever so slowly. The gap was 2 minutes. It's now inside 1 minute and 3/4. Franco Vona lost somewhere between the two, and nobody really minding that. So the arrival of Claudio Chiappucci, and this will be remembered as one of the finest escapes in the history of the Tour de France, in the manner of Fausto Coppi. All he's got to do now is hang on just long enough to come to the finishing line. All of his folks are waiting for him in Sestriere. He's climbed over the top of the Col de Cézanne, the Cornet de Roselon, the Col de Liseron, the Col de Montcenis, and now the climb at Sestriere. Maximum points today in the King of the Mountains, maximum in the Accolade Stakes as well for Claudio Chiappucci. Time will tell whether he's done enough to take the overall lead. He certainly stitched up the King of the Mountains in this year's Tour de France. And just look at this now, the moment of adulation. Claudio Chiappucci has pulled off one of the finest rides in the modern history of the Tour de France in the manner of that great Campionissimo Fausto Coppi. He'll go down in the history books by the end of this stage, and his face tells the story. Franco Vona, we see him at last, locked in between the battle between Indurain and Chiappucci. Vona coming in. Franco Vona arriving 1 minute 34 seconds back, and Indurain almost catching him. And you know, this will be enough to give Indurain the yellow jersey. He's finishing about 1 3/4 minutes down on Claudio Chiappucci. We know that Lino is a long way behind today, so Indurain will now be the new leader of the Tour de France. Bunyo's been forced to try and counter the moves of the stars today. He looks terrible here. He's coming home in 4th place, but almost 3 minutes back. World champion finishing in 4th slot. And the lonely figure of Andy Hampsten. This was the breakaway group that has shaped the race of today. Hampsten, like Bunyo, cracked on the climb up to Sestriere. But this will also assure Andy Hampsten now of a high position in the overall classification. He'll move up into the top 10. And his time gap somewhere around 3.5 minutes.
Problem riding at distances like today's distance, and yet you only finished 1 minute 30 seconds behind Indurain. You must be pretty pleased with that performance.
Yeah, usually something this long is just my motor doesn't hold up. You know, but I was taking care of myself today. I had a little bit of problem. I caught a bunch of plastic in my bike and screwed up my gears halfway up the last 10 Ks, but limited my losses, and I'm pleased. You know, usually it's not where I'm good.
But after a hard stage like today, how can you think about tomorrow? Because you've got to try and do the same thing again. Any thoughts for Alpe d'Huez?
I'm not thinking about tomorrow.
I don't blame you, Andy, and I suspect that neither is Claudio Chiappucci. Chiappucci said after the finish that it would be up to the journalist to decide if his ride was a historical one or not. It certainly was. He finished ahead of Vona and Indurain. Indurain, though, the new leader now by 1 minute and 42 seconds ahead of Claudio Chiappucci.